What is up, everyone, and welcome back to the Ryder Cup edition of Be the Number. I am your host, Tee Off Sports, and I will be doing the show solo this week. Before we get started, I do want to say that this is an extremely difficult event to handicap because of all the unknown variables. Even building a model doesn't give you the answers you are looking to find because certain players might not be in the game plan for a team. But I will just use this show to discuss a few hypothetical starting lineup builds, what I think we can expect from the course, and what I would have done as captain. I believe the best value in this event will come from the in-tournament head-to-head wagers that can be made once we know who is matched together. But let's dive on into things and see if we can't highlight a few key points. So we have the 2021 Ryder Cup, Whistling Straits, 7,390 yards, par 71, bent grass greens that are rather large. If we get a little more technical into the course, numerous dunes and some water will give the European team the feel as if this is a home match, but I believe it is nothing more than a facade. At its max, the course could have been stretched out to 7,800 yards, but Steve Stricker and company made a few minor changes that might actually bolster the need for length. We have a handful of an extremely long par fours that stretch over 450 yards, and they also put together a few shorter par fours where the green is drivable off the tee for those with the most distance. Numerous bunkers and fescue grass will add to the length because of all the doom looming, and while nobody knows for sure how many sand traps are at the venue, I might have hand counted them if I were Dustin Johnson after his 2010 mishap where he mistakenly mistook a bunker for being a waste area. The easy answer to appease everyone is well over 1,000. From a statistical model perspective, I'm going to keep things pretty simple this week with 7 straightforward categories. I have strokes gained tee to green for 15%. That is there to give me the best players in the world before hitting a putt. I believe opportunities to score will go a long way with this being a team event, and that's something that I find important here. I have 15% on strokes gained total on Pete Dye tracks. I will say this is the one thing that scares me a little bit for the American side because 7 of the bottom 12 players over their last 50 rounds are from the USA. That includes golfers like Xander Schauffele, Colin Morikawa, Jordan Spieth, and Justin Thomas. Par 5 birdie or better for 12.5%. Part of the reason the course was lessened by 400 yards was because of the typical par 5 11th being transformed into a par 4. I went back and forth on if I wanted to weigh this category because it seems likely we will get a lot of halves here in 4-ball play, but I did include it for 12.5% because it might become relevant for foursome action. I have 10% on greens in regulation from bunkers and 10% sand save percentage. As I mentioned, there are thousands of little sand traps spread across this area at the facility. Total driving for 17.5%. That was 60% distance and 40% accuracy. I do believe you could stretch it further for distance, but the venue has historically rewarded a mixture of both. And then I finished it with proximity from 200 plus yards for 20%. That is a pretty self-explanatory category when we look at how some of these par fours are going to play for the week. There are par threes that fall into that proximity range. Par fives will see all the second shots come from there. And I'd venture to say long iron proximity is probably the single most important stat once you find the fairway. As I mentioned to start the show, there are so many unknown variables that won't be decided until the day of the event. We will get a general indication of the first 16 golfers on Thursday night when both teams release their Friday morning 4-ball lineups, but we still won't have a full understanding of what play will look like as we move forward. My biggest piece of advice is to try and target golfers that you believe will have a shot to max out their exposure in matches, since being involved is so much more valuable than anything else. I would lean towards the European side being the better group to pick from the bottom of the slate because 1, ownership will flock to the Americans, and 2, there's just more up for grabs when it comes to playing time. We saw Fleetwood and Molinari ascend to 5 matches last Ryder Cup when they got hot, and I wouldn't put it past someone doing the same this year. To touch a little more on the schedule, Friday we'll see 4 teams in each setting. We'll have morning 4-balls, which is best ball, where everyone plays their own shot and takes the top score on the hole. Afternoon foursomes, which is alternate shot between 2 teammates. We will run back that exact format on Saturday. And Sunday, we'll get all 12 players into singles action. I don't want to spend too much time trying to hypothesize the unquantifiable, but let's talk a little bit about what we expect on Friday when lineups do get released. From there, we can see if anything can possibly be deciphered, but I think building an expectation is a good place to start. For best ball in the morning, I expect the USA to play Spieth and Thomas, Cantlay and Xander, Dustin Johnson and Morikawa, Brooks Koepka and Finau. We can get into what I think about that in a second, but I'd anticipate Europe going with Rory and Hovland, Rahm and Hatton, Fleetwood and Lowry, and Garcia and Westwood. For alternate shot, I project the USA team to roll with Spieth and Thomas, DeChambeau and Scheffler, Berger and English, and Xander and Cantlay. I think it gets a lot trickier on the European side of things, which is why I believe a guy like Shane Lowry might play more than people think. For the sake of trying to find upside for DraftKings, let's say Fleetwood and Lowry do play together and do indeed win early on. I wouldn't be shocked if they go again in the afternoon. I think that also changes the game plan a little bit for what you do with Rory and Hovland, because you probably have to use them again as a duo also. Casey and Fitzpatrick feel like a potential team for alternate shot no matter what. And then I believe you put Rahm with Poulter in that scenario. If Lowry and Fleetwood end up losing, then all is up for grabs. Europe seems to like placing Rory and Sergio together in alternate shot. I think that Casey Fitzpatrick team, as I said, is locked in no matter what. And then you have to decide who to pair Rahm and Hovland with. Poulter is 100% going to be with one of them in this scenario, I would say. Let's say they put him with Hovland here, and that likely would leave Rahm with either Lowry or Fleetwood. So if I'm looking for upside on the European squad of players that I believe have a better chance to play both the Friday matches that aren't Rahm, Hovland, or Rory, I would be looking at Sergio, Lowry, and Fleetwood. I think Casey, Fitzpatrick, Westwood, Hatton, and Poulter are likely one-off candidates for the day. And I think Bernd Wiesberger has a much narrower path to seeing playing time and will be used on Saturday to fill in for someone struggling. It's going to be very important to be active with your lineups and wait to see who is playing with who to begin the day on Friday, because that'll open up a lot more answers. But let's talk a little hypothetical here of what I would have done as the captain of the USA team for fun here. So in 4-ball, I would have sent out Justin Thomas and Bryson DeChambeau. DeChambeau grades number 1 in my model when it comes to course fit for Whistling Straits, and I would be using him across the board in all settings. I have some worries that the Thomas Spieth team might not be as sound as some are expecting at this particular track, and I wouldn't be shocked if we see them rotated away from each other before the 3 days wrap up. My concerns stem more from alternate shot, but a loss early could open up the floodgates. Number 2 for me would be Xander Schauffele and Patrick Cantlay. This is the one pairing that makes sense from a skill standpoint across the board, and I think this is what we're going to actually get. I just really like where their games are together. We saw them find success at the President's Cup, and the venue should suit them well. Number 3 would have been Jordan Spieth and Scottie Scheffler. I like this pairing because they are both Texas natives that can make birdies in bunches, and that blueprint in 4-ball is an explosive one when each man is ranked inside the top 7 in this event in birdie or better percentage. The two could have chemistry together, and I think it potentially gets rid of Spieth in the dangerous alternate shot portion if he ends up teaming with Justin Thomas there. And my final leg that will be my anchor leg of this would be Brooks Koepka and Harris English. Let me start by saying that despite ranking 4th in my DFS model, I do believe Koepka is best deployed in 4-ball only. We know Koepka has a difficult time getting along with others, and the fact that he is bringing an injury into the week won't help the situation. I'd say this is almost 100% going to be Koepka and Finau at the end of the day, because the two were solid together during the last Ryder Cup, plus Finau is one of the few guys that Koepka seems to get along with. But a Harris-English pairing might actually be more conducive for the Americans to find success when you dig into English's ability to make birdies in bunches for a format like this. For alternate shot, I would have sent out Dustin Johnson and Collin Morikawa first. I think we ultimately get this pair in best ball, but I prefer placing them together in foursomes. DJ's length and Morikawa's iron prowess would form a deadly combination to beat, and I'm not 100% sure either deserves to get a full arsenal of matches given their current form. On the second spot, I would send out Xander Schauffele and Patrick Cantlay again. I think this is just a very good team, as I mentioned. I'd roll with Daniel Berger and Tony Finau third. I think Stricker will eventually use Berger and English together because he doesn't know what else to do with them. But splitting the pot of Koepka, English, Berger, and Finau into the combination I have is likely a better route than having Koepka force his way with Finau for the week. English and Berger's lack of length worries me at a venue like Whistling Straits, and I believe Finau makes for a better teammate in this kind of a format. And then I would go back on the well with Justin Thomas and Bryson DeChambeau as my anchor leg to wrap up the day. The duo could form the ultimate cheat code when you look at Bryson's length and Thomas's irons and short game. And I think it's going to be a real shame if the USA can't figure out a way to utilize their biggest hitter on a prototypical American track. I know this was a different breakdown than you usually get from us over here at Be The Number, but I'm not one that is going to formulate opinions with no concrete backing to support the case. Unfortunately, we kind of have to play a guessing game throughout the week, but it is even more clouded on the handicapping end until we get some answers Thursday night. That will do it for us here on this quick Ryder Cup breakdown. I will go with the United States 15.5 to 12.5 to win back the cup. I wouldn't be shocked if this is a little closer than it should be early on, but I think close is fine when you have the firepower that the team possesses for singles play. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at TOffSports. And Josephine and I will be back next week for a more standard DraftKings breakdown when we handicap the Sanderson Farms Championship in Jackson, Mississippi. Good luck this week to everyone gambling on the Ryder Cup, and we will see you back here soon.